You are now listening to E4 Bizlosophy, the podcast that guides you on creating abundant wealth and leaving impactful legacies by putting your business in a winning position. Welcome to the journey. I'm your host, Tira D, with my special co-host, Dr. Curtis C. Cochran, aka Doc C. Thank you for joining us. So, Doc C, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great as well. So today is a very thought-provoking show. It made me do a lot of thinking about my own businesses. So I'm sure it'll be helpful to our listeners. So exciting. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. So now last episode, we talked about value as being core beliefs and guiding principles, or that inner compass. And we also talked about understanding value when it comes to business. You know, I always have a challenge focusing on just one because I have so many ideas constantly generating in my brain. And I know others who are exactly the same because they're creators, they're, innovators that have the same challenge. So what advice might you give someone like me as far as what will help me choose and or create and focus on a business that suits me?
And that's always a good question, and for every entrepreneur, actually. And there's two things that actually we talked about this morning. The first thing is to read a book by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called The Outliers. And the purpose of that book is to understand exactly how long it takes an individual to become an expert as to whatever they do. Meaning that it really takes you 10 years to become an expert. And a lot of companies, a lot of businesses fail way before that. For a variety of reasons, but the main reason, which we talked about last time, was value. Is really what's an individual's, I'd say, top 5 core values. What's your top 5? Because if your business doesn't run parallel to those 5 values, beliefs, if you will, you will fail because you really don't believe in what you're actually doing. And that runs, that's why I mentioned that book earlier about Malcolm Gladwell, because those people that spent 10 years working on anything, whether they're going to be an athlete, a musician, a business person, it doesn't matter what it is. It had to run parallel to their belief system for them to even have a chance to be successful. So that's the first thing an individual should do, is write down, what is it they believe in? Because I've done that exercise several times throughout my career, and I can tell you this, that my top 5 back when I was 18 isn't the same as what it is today. So you have to continually to do that. So that would be my first thing. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you don't value something, you won't stick with it. It won't grow, and you won't invest yourself, your time, your money into it, which ultimately leads to a lack of or no return on your investment.
That's right. And a lot of people will sit there and say they blame some external force that caused them to fail. And even though that may be true, because industry changes, economy changes, customer base changes. I mean, a lot of things obviously change. But what doesn't change, to a degree, I should say, is your common core, your core beliefs, because your core beliefs are who you are. And I don't know where a lot of people think that they get their beliefs from. That's a good question to ask as well, because if you believe that that elephants can fly, well, you got that from somewhere. So what I mean by the elephants can fly thing is that you want to make sure that your beliefs have some kind of evidence that support itself. So that when you do go into business, you can say, hey, this is my belief. I think I can take this company to the next level, and here's why. So you have to really dive into that question and answer. What are your, I'd say top five. I'm sure that there's more, but I'd go with the top five at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, start with the top five, and then like I've done, is then you just delve into that top five and find out why you believe in that specific thing. It absolutely helps, and I absolutely agree with that. So when I think about after we think about values, so what's some other questions that we might ponder over?
Well, you're referring to starting up a business? Is that what you're
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that I ask even my clients, or even when I do some coaching, is I ask them about the common core. What are your values? But the other question I ask them is, what are you good at? I mean, this is outside of some of the things that we've talked about, but what are you good at?
Right.
And it's really kind of puzzling at times when clients can't come up with that, which is quite interesting. So that would be my next thing. When you're going to look at opening up a business, if you're not a good communicator, then you evidently aren't going to be a good salesperson.
Right.
But here's the thing: if you're going to be in business by yourself, which that's what an entrepreneur is, you better pick up some skills when it comes to being a salesperson, because that's what you have to do. And there's plenty of organizations out there, Toastmasters and those kinds of things, that get you in front of people to actually communicate and sell what you're trying to sell. But it goes back to it goes back to your core, because if you really believe something, then you are going to be a great salesperson. And I'll tap into this. Look at the best churches, the best preachers that are out there. They totally believe in what they are doing, what they are selling. They are selling faith, and they're so believable that their church, their organization, their system they have great followers because they believe in what they do. And so you take a look at those pastors, churches, and so forth. They have followers. Why? Because they believe in what they do. And so whatever you decide to choose, you have to be a believer, not because it's making you money, but because it's part of your common core.
Right. Being passionate about that thing that you're selling, loving what you do, because you're selling it to others.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And your customer base, believe it or not, your customer base will have similar core values to what you're actually trying to sell, contrary to what people believe. And I mean, there's so many customers out there, and there's so much business out there. But again, the reason why a lot of people fail is because a lot of the things that they're trying to do are not connected to that common core. We keep on mentioning that common core, but it's actually, those core values are extremely important. That's why we ask that question: what are your top five?
Right, right, right. Now, would you say that how, like, what type of reality you want to create for yourself, and maybe for your family moving forward, would be important?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I'm glad you mentioned the reality piece, because that's exactly what you're doing, and tapping into your core values. Is that, what kind of reality are you going to put together for your family, for yourself? And it takes work. It takes hard work. And that's why, you don't, when you look at somebody else that is extremely successful, um, and a lot of times we go, golly bum, how did they do it? How did they do it? Are they lucky? Are they this? I mean, all these questions come up, and really, if you dive into it, they'll tell you the same thing that we're talking about. Is yeah, I was lucky. I am kind of lucky, but I believed in this particular product because it was connected to their core values, and so they actually come up with a a system or a program that was really came to a reality for them. And that's what our job is here on this planet: is what kind of reality do you want to actually um, develop for yourself? Because you can actually think, you believe first of all, and then think it into action. And that's why entrepreneurism, that's why I'm always in favor of that, because uh, there's nobody sitting here making you punch a clock from 8 to 5, and then your creativity starts to go south on you, because we are creative beings. And a lot of times we get trapped into a corner, and our reality starts to be put into a box made by somebody else. So yeah, that's why that question that you just asked about, what kind of reality do you want to develop as an entrepreneur? Well, it's going to be connected to the common core, the core values that you have, for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot about, like, what you said right now. It reminds me of, manifesting.
Right.
Because when I think about, creating a new reality, there's some work that goes into it.
Hmm.
Um, you're creating more opportunities for a better life, for replacing old beliefs that hold you back from creating a happier life. And then it involves also healing yourself and your physical and emotional wounds as well.
Right. It is. And what's so interesting to me is that people think that being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, is is easy, and it's not easy, because the, you get to find out when you open up your own business and you are an entrepreneur, you get to find out more about who you are,
Right.
more so than working for somebody else telling you who you are.
Absolutely.
Because that's exactly what they will do. They will say, well, Tiara, you're our accountant. You're not a salesperson. You just stay in the accounting department. And they do those things, and not even knowing that it's a detriment to the person that they're talking to, because we are all creative beings. But people are afraid to get into that entrepreneurship and owning their own business, because of the fear that has been placed by everybody else. Everybody else is telling you, oh man, don't open up a business, that you'll fail. Well, there's reasons why people fail, as we talked about earlier. Is your core values aren't connected really to what you're trying to get into. People, the buzzwords, the coin companies and all these other things that people are trying to sell you something, and really all they're trying to do is just make money off of you. and we dive into these other opportunities thinking that we're going to make money, when in fact it's not even connected to your common core, your core values, and next thing you know it, you fail. And then what do? You blame others for you fail, and then you think, gosh, I'm not really good enough for this, and all of these things that come into play. And really what happened is that you didn't sit down and talk about it to yourself. You didn't sit there and say, hey, you know, what am I really good at? Who am I? What can I do to shine? And that's what you need to do, for sure.
Right, absolutely. Now, earlier I mentioned, return on investment. And then that kind of leads me to another question, as a business owner, when contemplating, entering a business, that someone might ask themselves, and that is like, what are your top three objectives as in terms of managing your assets moving forward? Is that something that, you would also suggest that one ask themselves?
Yeah, when you right before you get into, I shouldn't say right before you get into business, but when you get into business, you have to change your mindset. And what that means to do is that you have to change this 8 to 5 thing, because you're trading from an 8 to 5. You're trading time, your time, for dollars. And really, time, there's no such thing as time anyway, because man has developed, humans have developed this idea of time anyway. But my point is, what you have to first change is this idea of profit. You are in business to profit. And I've always taught the 70-30 rule to all my clients, and 70%, 30%. Actually, I like it better if it's 60-40, and meaning that whatever however many dollars come in, you need to live off of not only your business, but you yourself, 60 to 70% of those dollars. The other 30%, let's say, 10% goes into a retirement, another 10% goes into savings or other things that you'd like to do, and another 10% goes into an emergency fund. So you actually have 30% of your dollars is really going into a back door to help you grow, and then you're able to actually take those dollars and buy real estate and buy investments down the road. And that's what you should do. I'm helping a company right now. It's interesting. It's a Porsche service company, and the owner didn't actually do what I told him to do for years, but now he's ready to actually make that move. So I'm helping him with, every ticket that they write to the business, 10% of that ticket goes into a separate account, and we call it his retirement account. So any order that comes in, it doesn't matter what it is, repair order, and I'll just use $100. So $100 repair order, 10 of those dollars goes into his retirement account. So if his company makes $1 million this year, he will have $100,000 in a retirement account from the get-go. It's that simple. But what happens is people aren't disciplined. It's not part of their value structure, their value system. And that they need to be disciplined to actually do that. That's why coaching, and that's why this podcast that we have developed together is crucial for our listeners to listen to, because you have to, even if you don't know what your 5 or 6 or 7 core values are, then you have to dive in, and don't be afraid to dive in to understand what those values are. I mean, because they may be different than what you and I have, which is totally fine. I mean, that's the beauty of this life that we live, and especially in the United States, when we have a lot of freedoms that people don't think we do, but we do have freedom of speech and freedom of choice and those kinds of things. But that's only a different topic anyway. But did that make sense about what I was talking about with the, investing and dollars and percentages and all of that?
Absolutely. And it's very valuable information, very valuable information. I always, like I say, I always appreciate, talking to you and listening to, your insight. It absolutely makes sense to me, to, that suggestion that you gave. And then also one other thing that comes to mind for me, and that is mission. What is your mission? What is the ultimate goal or purpose that you're striving for? What's the reason, your motivation to continue existing, operating, or working? And in business, I think more in terms of, like, for example, a company's objective and its approach, to reach or achieve those objectives. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I remember back in the 90s, I believe it was maybe the early 90s, mid 90s, where consultants would come in and talk about mission statements and visions and these kinds of things, and companies would write geez, a long paragraph of their mission statement. And ultimately, really what happened is management or leaders within the company organization, they developed this mission statement, and the rest of the employees, the rest of the team, they can't even recall it. They made it too big, and they thought, oh yeah, let's do this, whatever. And so what I have discovered, because of what you just said, your mission, what is your mission, is again the same company that I was just working with. It's amazing how you asked this question, because they had a paragraph of the mission statement, and I told them, bottom line, throw that out. I said, your mission statement should be, well, first, I guess I should ask, because I asked them several questions. I asked them about their values, their core values as a company, not as an individual, but what is it that you're really looking for? And they told me. So then I said, well, your mission statement should be the following: make payroll plus 30% profit. And that was it. I said, that's it. So that when you go out and you talk to the techs and you talk to everybody that's involved, which in this particular case, it was a small company, it's 10 to 15 employees, but every one of them can say, oh, our mission statement, make payroll plus 30, make payroll plus 30. So they know that what they need to do is not only make payroll, but profit. Because profit, these techs and everybody else will actually share in the profits at the end of the year, and that's the objective. But the objective is short, simple, and there's no deviation from it. And of course, there's a lot to go into doing that. But bottom line, in their mind, should be make payroll plus 30, make payroll plus 30. They should be saying that to themselves every day. Every day that I tell the service manager, I said, you need, what you need to do is from time to time go around every day. You don't have to do it to every tech, but go around and ask each one of the techs every so often, hey, what's our mission statement? Make payroll plus 30.
Right.
Because that's right here on their forehead.
Mm-hmm.
To do exactly that. I mean, you think about it. The president of the United States, does he memorize his speeches? No. He reads them from a teleprompter, right? And so if our president of the United States is reading from anything, well, that's telling you that we can't remember all of these things. As a matter of fact, I was just reading yesterday that if we study anything, now this is just studying, but if you were to study, you name it, that the average human being only retains 18% of what they studied after 28 days, which tells us a lot about who we are. Is that so? What happens today and what we think about today, it obviously changes. That's why the core beliefs are very important. That's why your mission statement is so important, because you have to reflect on those things daily. Not, I'm gonna write this big, huge mission statement, right, and think that everybody's going to follow it. Well, they're not going to. The reason they're not going to follow it is because it's not part of their core values themselves. Right. Your employees, your corporation, it's not part of it. And so that's why you make it simple. You make everything so simple that, that old saying that like a fifth grader can understand. Well, I'd say a first grader. Just say a first grader.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. With everything you've said, it's absolutely right. Whoever reads those mission statements and procedural manuals and everything like that anyway.
Oh, they're not going to. I mean, right. they just are not going to, especially unless you're the author. And I don't even know if you're the author or whether you. I mean, that's just an ego thing. I mean, here this is a beautiful document telling us about our mission statement, which has nothing to do with anybody's belief system at all. But you think about it, make payroll plus 30. What does that do? What does that say? Make payroll. I'm part of the payroll.
Right.
Right. So now I have an intrinsic value connected to what our mission statement is, because that's my paycheck. So when I turn and I see somebody not working, I'm going to go over there and say, hey, you start working, because it's about making payroll plus 30. Now you make everybody accountable to that mission statement. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I agree. Well, it's been another great episode. Always, like I say, I walk away with these, pocket gems is what I call them.
Yeah.
Because it's valuable, to me and, my businesses. I get to learn new things that I can use and also apply, to my businesses. And I'm sure, our listeners, will appreciate that as well for their businesses. And that's exactly what we're here for, to provide some, value from them or for them, with your 30 some odd years of, experience that you have, are really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll tell you this, that I keep on learning. I mean, I learn from you and even these talks, because, I get business owners left and right call me every day and ask me certain questions, and these questions and our solutions help our listeners, because I dive into all different industries. I deal with different cultures, and I can see how things become dysfunctional within the business organization and their culture. And I see so many of them. A lot of them have the same types of problems. A lot of them have different problems. And when you and I start discussing topics, even the future podcasts that we're going to have, these will be beneficial for our listeners, because if you're a small business or you're getting into being an entrepreneur, you got to identify some of these problems and solutions that we come up with, which will help them for sure.
Right, right. I absolutely believe in what they say, that knowledge is infinite. So,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, we can always be learning something.
absolutely. Yep.
You have been listening to the E4 Bizlosophy podcast with Doc C and Tira D. We would like to thank our audience for taking the time out of their busy schedules to listen to our podcast. We hope you will continue to tune in week after week. Please don't forget to follow us on @E4BizPod on the various social networks. And if you've enjoyed our podcast so far, please show us some love by leaving a like, subscribe, comment, or write us a review wherever you get your podcast. Join us again next Friday.